Hello and welcome to the third lesson in bubble.io. Now, in this lesson, we are going to fully talk about the interface and how to go about things in bubble.io. Now, when you decide to create your new application, you end up on this particular page. Now this is the interface with your application name written here. So in this case I'm using Sewuni Coding School. Now if you watch this particular part carefully, it contains the pages in your application. So when I click on this down arrow, I see all the pages I have on this particular application. So I have the index, the error page, that's 404, and then the reset password page. Now these are the three pages. I can click here to add more pages, and these three pages are default, so I cannot delete them. I can create, when I create any page, I can later delete it. Alright, but these three are by default. Okay, now when I come to this particular part, it's talking about the element I have on a particular page. So the page is index, and this is the element on the index. So currently I don't have anything here, so let me try and then add an element, and then try and add another element. So when I come to the element part, I can see that I've added two different test elements, test A and test B. So this one will allow us to choose or to navigate through the element we have, and then to do the necessary customization and design to it. So I'll delete this one, and then delete this one as well. Alright, so when you come to the edit part, you can either undo an action, or you can redo an action. Okay, so you can use the edit to do the do and the undo. Now when you come to the help is basically giving us short tutorials on our way on the application, what to do and what not to do. It is giving you the necessary help, sort of a manual, okay, that explains some things for you. Now here you see saved. Now this saved, I told you, because we are doing everything online, it automatically saves. So let's say I draw this, you see saving, and then later you see saved. You don't have to click on anything to save. So as you are doing the design, it automatically saves your work. And then when you come to the grids and borders, now when I show grid, you see grid lines showing. These are the grid lines. The step shows the thickness of our grid and our gutter. So let me increase it to, let's say, 40. You see that it has increased. So let me just reduce it to 1. Alright, so when I reduce it to 1, this is what I see. So that the grid lines will help us in our designs. And then the color, you can also change the color. If you know the color code, you can enter it here. If you know the color code, what you do is you click on this color and choose the color you like for your grid lines. Okay, so any color of your choice you choose. Apart from the grid lines, you can also add gutter. So let me just exclude the gutters, and you see, this is what you see. When I include it, this is what I see. You can also include horizontal lines, so it will look like other lines crossing these vertical lines you see. Horizontal lines are not showing, I don't know why. Okay, so you can also start with gutter decide to remove the gutter, and let me try my horizontal lines. I'm not showing. So you can do all these necessary settings. Snap element to edges, snap element to grid, snap to edges and grid, do not snap. All this on disable element terminals, zoom, and the rest. You can do all these settings on this particular interface, so that it will be easy for you to do your design without any problem. Now you can see arrange. Now when you click on, let me add a button. Now when I add a button to on this my working area, I have two elements here. I have a text element and a button. I can decide to click on any of the elements, choose arrange, and I have options to bring to front, send to back. So let me try and bring this button on the text. Now I've put this button on my text, but I would like the text to show in front. So I click on the text and then I'll click bring to front. When I click bring to front, even though this button is on it, on my design the text is showing on top of the design. So I can decide to take this one off. When I bring it on it and I release, the text is still on top. You don't see it well. Let me add borders to my elements, so you can actually, okay, so show border. Let me show the borders for, so you can see the text element is on the button element. So that's how you use. Now this is also like the undo and the redo we spoke about at edit. So if you don't want to use the edit, you can use the undo and the redo here, to undo and then to redo. Okay, to undo and to redo. This search is used in searching element type and the rest. So you can check the event type, the element type, the action type, and the rest. And then when you come to this development here, because we are designing on the same page, we have two different modes. We have the development mode, that is when you are doing your design. That's where you see, that's where we are currently on. Now if you want to launch it, you go to the live. Okay, when you go to the live, that one will show you the live preview of your work. Okay, but when you come to this preview shows you how the visitor will see your application when he access it. So by the development is the design part, that is the back end where you do your design as the app developer. Now the live mode will take you into the live session of your site. So if you are done with the development, you want to launch it, you come to live and take it to live. Now if you go to the preview, it will appear as though you are a visitor. So that's how visitors will see the page. So I'm done with this stop. Let me just come here and explain a few things. You can see design. I told you our focus will be on design, workflow, and then data. So when you come to the design, these parts all form part of the design. All these elements, these are the visual elements we use in our design. So you can add text, add button, add icon, add a link, add images, shapes, alerts, video, HTML. Now this HTML is, if you have any additional HTML code you would like to add, you can do that. You can add maps. When we come to the containers, we have group, repeating group, pop-up. We'll talk about all these things. And then when it comes to the input, these ones are specifically done to receive user information. So when someone comes to on the application and the person is trying to enter an information, the person will enter it in any of our input forms. So we learn how to design them to receive information from users. Remember when we were registering, we were asked to enter our email and our password. Yes, so the input form was used in doing that, to allow us to input our username and our password to log in, or any registration when we are signing up to enter our information. And then we are also giving reusable element or template. Okay, reusable element or template. We can decide to design a particular group of elements we use often. Let's say our header, our footer is something we'll be using often, so we can decide to create that one, put it in a group, so that any application we do, we can just call that particular group and we can use it without going over the design again. So we can create that one as a group, so that anytime we want to use it, we can use the whole element in the particular group. We can, if you don't want that one, the template, if you don't want it, we can create our own reusable element. It can also be done here on the index page. You can see the footer and the header, and you can see add new reusable element. And then when we come to the workflow will define whatever we would like a particular element to do. So for instance, in our design, we create a button. So let me create a button here. Now when I create a button, in my workflow, what I'll do is I will show whatever will happen to this this element button I've done. So when I click on this element, sign me in. When I click on it, sign me out. When I click on it, open a registration form for me. When I click on it, show an alert box. So whatever action this particular button or this particular text box will perform, you give those instructions in the workflow. Okay, and this data is our database. This one is used in what? Taking user information. So by default, we have a database created, which is user. You can decide to add anyone. Let's say, let me add customer. If you add customer and click create, it will be added here. We cannot delete this user because it's by default, but this one I just created, you can see the delete icon here. I can just delete this database. And then these are the fields. Remember again, when we were entering or when we were registering, we were told to enter our email and our password. All these ones are by default. We can add additional field. For instance, if you want to enter this application, I would like you to let's say enter your name, so your full name. So in the field type, it is test, because your name is in the form of a test. So can you imagine if I'm looking for your address, I'll use geographic address or map. Okay, if I want your date of birth, definitely I'll use a date. I wouldn't use a number or a text. So for name, I'll use what? Plain text. So you see that it will be added in my what? In my field when I'm what? Doing my design finally. So this is our database. Any user request you want, or anything the user does, will be entered in our database. So we are back on this design page. You create a particular application, a very short application, so that all of us will understand how the various elements work. So after designing, we will come to the workflow, add the actions, and then we will store them in database. We create some groups also, so we see how elements are used, and then what we can do and what we cannot do using bobo.io. Now when we come to the styles also, these styles gives us the element style. Anything on the element, we can, if you are entering text, we can just bold, italize, or underline. We can do the basic alignment, give line spacing, word spacing, background color, all these things, button, secondary button, the color of the button, all these things we can do them in the styles. As for plugins, I don't have any plugin installed now. If I want to add any plugin, I'll go to add plugins, Plugins are basically like tools or software that do particular thing on a website. Okay, so let's say if I want a plugin that slides images, I can look for an image slider and then install it as a plugin. When I click on the plugin, I'll get a lot of plugins. Some of them are paid for, some are also free. That's basically a plugin. So these are the various plugins. Sorry, trying to misbehave. Now these are the plugins. I said I don't have any of them installed yet. I don't want to use any plugin for now. And then when you come to the settings, you can do basically some security settings and then the logs. These are the plugins. Alright, so back to our design. After that, we'll try and in our next lesson we'll create a simple sign up form so that we add the workflow and we save it on database. Then we see how the various elements work and the way the workflow and how to store user details in a database. Thank you for taking part in today's lesson.